same game. The toast goes to one of my favorite people also as well in that stadium on the other side of things. Much maligned. There's only 2 years ago, people were calling for his job. They cut his salary in half. They did a couple other things that were kind of a little humiliating to such a guy who played there, had success there, won there, and now he's back. The expectations were always bigger than him, and all of a sudden, he's not just matching but exceeding them. Last year, he goes in, they beat Ohio State when they come to Michigan, and people kind of gave it that old, well, they kind of shocked him, caught him off guard. Not this year. Not this year. Big blowout win for Michigan, and Jim Harbaugh, who's got it better than us? They shut it all up. Yeah. Cheers to Big Blue and Coach Harbaugh.
For sure.
Back-to-back big wins against Ohio State.
Yeah.
And now we're off. Go ahead.
I give them all the credit. I give them all the credit in the world. And this is the way that I started writing about it tonight. I'll put it up tomorrow. But the big thing for me, Ohio State, you know who they you know what they look like now? They look like Peloton dad, right? They look like the dad. Peloton. They look like the dad who every morning gets on the Peloton, and you know what? He's ship shape. He's in good shape. He looks good. He's a little ripped up. And maybe he goes for runs on the weekends. He's got the running stroller. He's doing all that stuff. But you know what? When that garbage disposal breaks, he's calling a guy.
I was curious where you're going with that.
It's interesting.
He's calling a guy. He don't want to get his hands dirty for real. And that's what I saw. That's what I saw today watching Ohio State. I thought it was a phase for them where they were working on trying to figure out their run game. Thought they were working on trying to figure out what they do defensively. And honestly, I don't blame the defense for this loss. I blame the offense because they had 3 trips in the red zone in the first quarter.
Well, I mean, that was their red zone offense sucked all day. They couldn't score. I mean, they got down there, but they couldn't execute down there. Bingo. And I think that's a big issue. But I mean, still, man, for Ohio State giving up, what was it, 5 or 6 plays of 60+ yards?
But that's what that defense does. We know that. You know that too.
No, I know. But the thing is they say Jim Knowles says if I give up 7 explosives, right? Explosives are 15 or more, but you're talking like 60 70. Plus is that's like an atomic bomb, and you gave up
4 of them.
Yeah, 4 Nagasaki's. Like, you can't be doing that, dude.
Exactly.
And expect to win at home. So to me, and especially a team that didn't have a propensity to show outside guys who can win. I mean, JJ had a couple wide open. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, and by my definition, you got 5 or 6 yards of separation against Ohio State. That is wide, smack ass open.
Yeah, absolutely.
He hit him, and that I've been hard on him and that whole scheme in terms of putting him in situations. He hit him, 12 for whatever he was, 12 for 24. Hit the explosives, got it done. What I was really impressed with, though, was
tackles. The broken tackles. Like we saw those broken tackles when we talked about with Penn State, right?
Well, you go zero, and I think Ohio State's defensive backfield has been probably their weakest part of the link. For a much improved defense, that's probably been the weakest part of their link, and the tackling and physicality more so than anything. And I mean, it showed up to get them in that bite them in the ass a couple times, but. The other thing is, I mean, for me watching the first half, if you'd have told me that Ohio State was going to outrush them, pretty much out time of possession them, turnover battle was 0-0 at that point in time, and they'd be down. You would have never thought that, right? And I think it's hard because I don't want to take any credit away from Michigan. I thought they played a really good game, really tough game, and they grinded it out. They slow grind, stuck to what they had. They had 2 runs in the fourth quarter of 60 or what was it, 85 and 75 yards.
85 and it was like 85 and was it 68 or something?
Well, I mean, they had like 3/4 of their rushing yards in 2 plays, right? Yes. So I mean, great. Like, happy that they got it done. Just a little bit disappointed in Ohio State's showing and how it presented. I think when you watch the tape, look at it on paper, it was much better than what the score reflected, but at the same token, the big gashes and the icebergs that they hit were so big and they took on so much water, and Michigan took advantage of that. And that's how I saw it, right? It's hard to sit there and say that to me, I still have a lot of belief in Ohio State. I think it's a very talented roster. I think it's a very talented team, and I think they have a great coaching staff. And you know, again, you know, it is what it is, and we'll see how these next few weeks play out. But at the end of the day, Michigan got it done. They capitalized when they could, and Ohio State just too many self-inflicted wounds, in my opinion.
You guys ever see that? You ever see that movie, Usual Suspects?
Yeah. Who hasn't seen Usual Suspects?
Well, a lot of the younger guys may not have seen it. Hack, you ever seen that movie, Usual Suspects?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So
to my point, a great, like a caper movie. One of the, just think, Ocean's 11.
Yeah, I got you.
They're a little darker. Yeah. Everybody's got their
greatest trick the devil ever pulled.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled. But Kevin Spacey's in it, and he comes off as paraplegic and kind of a nitwit through the whole movie. And he's referring to their quote unquote boss. Well, my boss won't allow me. He's really a demon. He's this, he's that. And toward the end of the movie, not to give it away, but he is that guy. And there's a scene at the very end of the movie where he's limping and limping and limping, and it starts to reveal itself. And his limp irons out. He stands up. He starts to walk normal, and he's off and he's moving. And he let the world think he was one thing, and here he is, a total different thing. That hit me today watching Michigan, especially in the second half. Especially in the second half. They let the narrative not just sink in, but stain that they're only a great run team and a great defense.
Well, they did it without Blake Corum.
And they did it without their best player. And for everybody, and, you know, styles make fights, and that is their identity. But they just kept the air game in the hangar. Don't come out here against Maryland with it. Don't show it against Indiana. Beat Penn State without it. Like, we'll just use very much sparingly. And out they come. And Hack, you and I talked about this off air. It wasn't like they threw it 40 times tonight. 13. Let me get the number right.
Yeah, I think it was 12 for 24 today.
Technically 13 for 25, but 278 yards, 11 yards an attempt. And they just put the challenge to their skill kids and their quarterbacks. It's going to come to us at some point, and we're going to see it at the end of the season. They won't be thinking about it. Our opponent won't be thinking about it. And Felder, look how many guys Ohio State had to constantly commit, recommit, half commit to the box. Yeah. All those defensive players woke up every single Sunday morning reading about Michigan. Wow, they bludgeoned another team to death. We got to protect our ribs when we get in this game.
Yeah.
They go in with protecting their ribs and got their head taken off. Right up top. And to top it off, Michigan 278 passing yards in the air. And Hack already hit you with all the explosives. But they also ran for 252. The majority of that was in the last quarter and a half of the game.
Yep.
Which tells you that's a hungry team, a well-disciplined team, and a team that really revs up for the back half of the fight. Rounds 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they were busier than they were in the front part of the fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead, Hack. Go ahead.
I didn't have anything to say.
Well, I'm just saying that now you look at it, the question was, can they get through Ohio State? Now it's, who can't they beat in the country? That win was defining enough. They're that well coached. They're that balanced. Take the best player off of any team and put that team in the biggest game of their year. And what do? Blake Corum is without question their best player. He gave it a go in the first inning, or sorry, with all the baseball stuff, the first series. He gave it a shot in the first series, and that was it. Yep. But that team did not panic. The offensive line had to have been thinking, really, we're what makes the run game go. That's an us thing. That's the 5-6 guys up front. And then whoever else is given the honor of carrying the ball behind us as a Michigan back, just come follow us. McCarthy stepped on up. Big game tonight. 3 touchdown passes, 1 on the ground. But they were so completely prepared for every aspect of what was going to happen. Marvin Harrison Jr., Hack, Felder, 7 catches, still had 100 yards. Relatively quiet day, though. Ohio State backs never really got loose. And C.J. Stroud looked the most human he's ever looked. Might have cost him the Heisman tonight. But this Michigan team.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, who can they not beat? Go ahead, Felder.
I was going to ask. I was going to say, does this because we talked about this a week ago. This catapults between the win tonight and C.J. Stroud's loss. This catapults Caleb Williams into the front runner for the Heisman, correct?
1,000%.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
1,000%.
Yeah.
For sure.
Hack, yeah. C.J. Stroud, Hack. What was your biggest takeaway, not just of him, but what our impression's going to be left with from the season? Because honestly, the kid still had a hell of a season.
No,
but
I mean
the expectations that we had on him and this offense were they outsized or they just fall short?
No, I think they were astronomical, and I think they earned all that, right? And again, I'm not going to make excuses for anybody, but a guy who we all had pegged is probably arguably one of the best college football players in the country, all around football players, and Jackson Smith and Jigba was not on that team. Now, granted, that gave room for Marvin Harrison Jr. to arise and a few of these other players that they have to grow, right? Fair. But the same token, that definitely hurts, and that's definitely some production. I just felt that the last half of this year, this Ohio State team was not as disciplined as they have been in past years in the red zone when money was to be made, and when Ohio State really, really gashed you and hurt you. They didn't kick field goals. They scored touchdowns, and they did it at an efficient clip. They didn't do it down possession in, possession out. They did it in spurts and flurries. Even the Penn State game, they did it in spurts and flurries where it's like, oh shit, here comes another one. Oh great, awesome, boom, 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 boom. They could pile it on, but they just weren't as consistent as they have been. And I think that really played a lot into CJ. I think he executed a little bit poorly, and I think it went back to a little bit of some of the stuff that I touched on when I just watch Ohio State's offense. Is they're very, very vertical. There's not a lot of possession passing game for Locke, horizontal stretch possession passing game. And when you get in the red zone, you cut that vertical aspect out. You got to have some guys who have feels for that, and you got to have some timing and some anticipation.
You got to have a Chris Olave.
Yeah, correct. I mean, a Chris Olave, a Garrett Wilson, I think.
You just got to have the system.
Yeah. Right, the system, and I think you just have to have people to execute it, right? And I just think that they didn't, top to bottom, coaching staff all the way to CJ Stroud and everybody else. I don't think they executed well enough in that area throughout the entire year. And I know that's probably going to be a big focus for them heading into whatever happens for the end of the season and then next year, right? I'm just such a big fan of Ryan Day. I really am. I think he's a hell of a ball coach, and I think he's going to get things fixed. And I just have such a deep, and really it goes for both these programs that we're talking about, a deep appreciation for both Michigan and Ohio State, having played at Penn State and played against both these programs. I have a deep appreciation for them and how they've done things. And I see Michigan thriving in the old school throwback mentality that I really jive with and respect. And I always watched Ohio State have it, and you're starting to see it not deteriorate, but you're starting to see
it's trickling away.
Yeah, it's almost like the entitlement that Ohio State never let seep into that building, into those players. I'm not saying that there's a ton of it there, because there's definitely not, but there's definitely more than there has been in the past. And I think that I'll hurt everything.
I'll say, like, I'm not gonna say, I don't think there are any soft football programs, soft football teams.
No,
I don't think there are. But what I do think is that there is a level of business decision.
Right. Maybe entitlement's not the right word either. That's the hard thing. I don't know if there's
but there are teams that are entitled, and Texas is one of them. I'll just flat say it. They've been entitled for 10, 15 years, and we've all talked about it. They've changed managers, they've changed coaches, they've changed rosters, and every time those guys, we end the season looking back on what Texas actually did, you can say it's still country club down there. It's still a canal. Management again, Coach Sark. I don't know if that's. I'm not saying I don't know. To me, it's not that. I look at this as Ohio State. It's in the first time we saw them struggle. They struggled with Northwestern for 3.5 quarters. It took them a late explosion to get out of who was at Maryland to get out of that jam. Like they were cornered in or caged up 3 or 4 times this season before,
but they were always able to get out of it. And then they couldn't get out of it.
Correct. Yeah. We can just overwhelm you. We can just turn and overwhelm you and get up out of here. Not against an opposite equal, not tonight. Not against a hungrier opposite equal. I don't know if it's such an indictment against the program or just a reflection on how they arrived. They have been so loved. It's imagine it's some kind of mix between the national adoration for them, like the Dallas Cowboys, but also the consistent winning like the Patriots. Like everybody, they're both polarizing. But everybody turns on to watch the Cowboys and now give them some winning. The Cowboys is winning. Mm-hmm. And everything Michigan does always has an asterisk of, well, we'll see about your Ohio State deal.
And they took care of it. Listen, I am excited to see that Michigan, the same way that I was with Georgia, talking to you guys earlier in the season, wanting to see them stretch the field, wanting to see them get, a little bit more aggressive offensively.
Yeah,
we saw Michigan do those same things. So to me, I like that. I really do. I know I'm gonna go off the rundown, but come back to the rundown. I'm gonna move something up, and I'm gonna go LSU because LSU.
But give me 1 second. I'm gonna go off that Georgia point here real quick.
Yeah,
Alabama reigned forever since Saban's been down there. Up comes Georgia. Alabama never even had a quote unquote rival on the east side since kind of the Tebow days waned out. And it's just like they had to handle business on the west side, handle that just SEC title game, mere formality, get on with it. Georgia met the challenge, made the necessary offseason changes, made the coaching changes, made the recruiting changes, made the dedication, really admin down. And then here comes Michigan. Georgia has flipped the SEC because they are now the landlord of the SEC. You still don't want to come up across Alabama day or night. You're still going to cross the street when you see the Roman army. It's not like you're going to try them. Mm-hmm. Are we not possibly seeing that in the Big Ten now? Has the landlord office now moved up there to Ann Arbor now? In much as how Georgia has done that with Alabama, accepting the challenge. Then you got to go head up with them. And this is the second year they've now done it. Can we now say that the landlord office is now in Ann Arbor?
Here's the thing is I think that Michigan needs to take that next step when you're talking national stage.
National.
Because here's the thing, like Ohio State still to this day shows up nationally. I mean, they beat a really good Oregon team last year in the Rose Bowl. Yeah. They did win a national title with their third string quarterback.
Yep. Yeah. Beat Clemson in the playoffs, beat Bama in the playoffs.
Beat Oregon. Like they've done it on a national stage to me with those other gladiators that you're talking about outside of the Big Ten, right? Like Michigan is now, I guess I'm not going to say they've conquered the step of interconference.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then they went up and played Georgia last year, which may or may not have been a fair comparison because of what Georgia was last year, but still went up and played Georgia and it wasn't even really close. So now I think for this Michigan team, the next step in maturity and the next step in this phase for them is to show up in the first round of the college football playoffs and win the damn game. Go beat someone. Go beat someone that you're not supposed to beat or outside of the Big Ten.
Felder, let me ask you this. Let's just shift this here just for a second. You mentioned LSU. LSU getting beat tonight. They were on that doorstep. We got a couple of teams